Welcome to Full Send into Adulthood, hosted by Dr. Cielle, a former professor, dean, and certified life coach. This podcast is for you amazing young adults and is a go-to for all things adulting. Join us for conversations about what matters to you, including navigating the often overwhelming ride of adulthood, redefining what's possible for yourself and your communities, and creating a life that you are proud of on your own terms, even if nobody else is doing it. We're igniting a movement where you change the game and challenge the marginalization that often comes with being a young adult. Ready to feel better about this adulting thing? Let's do it.
Welcome, all of y'all, to the first ever episode of Full Send into Adulthood, the podcast with me, Cielle Amundsen, Dr. C, Big Sister Almighty. Anyways, there's a lot of names that I've gone by, but this has been a long time coming, and I am so freaking excited to be with y'all. What a gift it is. So if you are here, thank you. If I forget to thank you at the end of the episode, I am just so grateful that you are here with me today. And what are we doing today? Today, on this episode, I really want to introduce what the podcast is about, why this podcast, what to expect, if anything, and who I am, so that we can start to build this thing called trust in the relationship that I hope will continue to grow. For those of you who don't know me yet, this is the beginning, I hope, of a long-time relationship with y'all. And for those of you who do know me, let this be a continuation. Oh gosh, my heart is fluttering and it's so full and I just want to squeal and hug you all. So again, thank you so much for being here. All right, so what is this podcast? So this podcast, again, is called Full Send into Adulthood. It is specific and tailored towards young adults. And in my brain, young adults are aged about 17 to 30. Y'all, but if this supports you, please, that's what we're here for. It's to support each other and to connect with one another. And so that's what I hope that this is one source that supports you in living lives that just completely light you up. My hope for all of us is that we get to the end of our lives, and if we do have that moment where we have that flash reel that flashes before our eyes, that we can at that point say to ourselves, we did it. That was a good life we lived. Done. What is that song? I'm thinking of that Green Day song. Oh, I can't think about it right now. But basically that I lived a good life. Yeah, so that's what I hope. And that this podcast is to support, really, it's that transition into adulthood that we often miss out on, that we often do not speak about. And I think that it does a huge disservice to our society, but also to the people in our lives who matter so much, who are in that age range. So we will be talking about what that transition looks like, what adulting looks like, what struggles people are facing. Again, because I don't think that we talk about it enough. It reminds me a lot of a romantic comedy. And while I love a really good rom-com, the emphasis and the focus of the entire film is usually the beginning of a relationship, the getting together, and then the movie ends with the kiss or with the wedding scene. And then what happens after that? Roll credits. And as an audience, we hope that the couple stays together. We assume that they do. Hopefully it's happily ever after, but we don't know. And that is what we do, I believe, to youth in our society, is we spend a lot of time and effort and emphasis on what to do in our youth. I mean, up to 18, right? The structure, all of those things. And then once y'all hit 18, once you hit 21, it's like, okay, roll credits. We hope you have a fabulous life. We hope you succeed. We hope you achieve at all things, but we're not going to show you how or talk about it or talk about the challenges. Good luck. Peace out. Is that not what it feels like a lot of the time? There's just this expectation that y'all should know. The expectation that we should all know how to adult and how to do this adulting thing without ever being taught. And here's the consequence of that. I mean, there's several consequences, but here's a consequence that I hear often is that when young adults actually do feel challenges, when you don't know what to do, when you're completely overwhelmed, or when you're completely just out of ideas of how to take the next step and what's the right next thing for you, and how do we actually do this thing called life and adulting and the real world after school, and when you're struggling and nobody is talking about the challenges, you start to internalize and you start to think, oh, there must be something wrong with me. I must be the only one struggling here because we're not talking about it, which then does what? Y'all aren't like, yay, I must be super unique and I love myself even more. It's not what we tend to do. We tend to then belittle and bully and tell ourselves how awful we are for struggling. Okay, so this podcast is honestly here to fill that gap of roll credits. We are not rolling fucking credits here. We are validating and we are saying, yes, when we hit adulthood, when we are 17, 18, 20, 22, 27, we deserve to have conversations that support us. We deserve to have conversations that say, yeah, this is hella hard. Now what? We deserve to have conversations that build our foundations on ourselves. Oh my gosh, that actually reminds me of I just got goosebumps. One of the reasons that I actually said, yes, I'm going to do this podcast, because I think I started having students, and again, I'll do my introduction for those of you guys who don't know, but I taught university for over 20 years. And it's been in the past couple of years where students started to say, Cielle, they called me Dr. C a lot of times. Dr. C, it's time for you to do a podcast. Can you please do a podcast? Now, I knew at that point that I wasn't ready, but sometime I believe in the fall of last year, I was driving and I was like, all right, I'm feeling like I should do this podcast now, but why am I going to do this podcast? Is this really now? Is it not? Is this where I'm going? I still have those doubts, y'all. Welcome to adulting, by the way. So I was asking myself those questions in the car, and the song The Bones by Maren Morris came on. And I was so overwhelmed by this feeling, because there's the words that go, when the bones are good, the rest don't matter, right? And then it's like, the house don't fall when the bones are good. Oh, there's a part about the crack in the foundation. Oh, I want to talk about that real quick. But it's like, the house don't fall when the bones are good. And I was like, that's it. Like, what if I get to just support young adults in y'all knowing or creating foundational bones that work, so that you know that no matter what changes in life happen, no matter what struggles show up, because they will, that you trust yourselves enough to handle it. And that's that lyric. There's a lyric in the song, and that's the one that sort of broke me, because I was like, okay, I'm doing it. It's when there ain't a crack in the foundation. So that one. And I was like, how amazing would that be? And I interpreted that sort of line two ways. Number one, so when there ain't a crack in the foundation, what if people actually in the world more and more got to see that they're not a crack? That all of us, in being human, struggle. We have failures. There's things that we don't know. There's things that we're learning about ourselves. Those aren't necessarily cracks, right? There's nothing wrong with us. There's nothing to fix, because we ain't fucking broken. Again, society and oppressive systems and a lot of, we can talk about those, make a shit ton of money out of us believing that we are wrong and broken and need to be fixed. But if we could all just own that we're not, how amazing would that be? The other thing that it makes me think about, right? So, and again, y'all will learn I live in the gray. I know that there's a lot of like black and white. I love the gray area. That's where we're going to stay. Various perspectives. The other way that I think about the cracks is, of course, we all have cracks in our foundation. It's called being human. Of course, we've all tried things that didn't work. Of course, we've all hurt people. Of course, we failed at things. Of course, we have cracks. And yet, those cracks are the goodness. Is it not true that when I'm thinking of romantic relationships, but it can be any relationship, a friendship, right? Whatever it is. When somebody shares with you things that intimidate them about themselves. Let me try to say that again. When people take a moment to share their vulnerabilities, when people take a moment to share something that they're actually scared and nervous to share with you because it's not perfect, because it showcases something that they're afraid to show people, that they've been masking for a lot of their lives, that they're worried that they won't be lovable because if they share this thing, you're going to realize that there's this not so perfect aspect to them and you may leave, right? That part, when they are willing to trust you with that information, how do you feel usually? How do you feel? Do you sit there and are you like, oh my gosh, so awful, bad, and wrong, done with you? Usually not. Usually if it's somebody who has trusted you with that information, it's somebody that you also care about. And then what happens? You tend to feel so connected. Do you not? You tend to feel like it's a gift that they've shared with you. You tend to trust them a little more. That's what I mean by the good stuff, y'all, is we tend to think that these cracks in our foundation, these struggles that we have, these failures that we have, these things that aren't perfect are what's actually going to separate us from people. But y'all, that's actually what brings us together. That's the connection. There's the humanity to it, that thing that most of the time on social we're not showing, where we have this like perfect, whatever, filtered face all the time. That's not the stuff that creates connection. That's not the stuff where we feel deeply loved and seen and heard and known. Where I actually hope that this podcast is a space for people for that. That is something that people say in my presence that they feel like is, well, here's what I hear often about myself. And then I should probably do an introduction about who I am and what I've done in my life so y'all can start to trust me a little bit more. People tend to say that they love my energy. They're like, oh my gosh, I just love being around you. Often people will say that they love being around me because afterwards they feel lighter, or they feel like I'm a safe space. I've been hearing that a lot recently, actually, that I feel like a safe space. So they feel that they can like let their masks down and actually just share who they are. I've had a lot of friends and family, but also old students and clients sort of just share their emotions with me recently because of that and say that they feel that there's a safe space. So there just feels like a relief or a letdown. Y'all, if I could be that for y'all, let me do that, because that's something that does come naturally to me. Like, I love loving people. I taught university again for over 20 years, and I would read every single, at the end of the semester, comment that students would write to me. And the most prevalent note that I got was, I knew that you cared. I knew that Cielle cared. And is there anything better? I am so glad that y'all know that I care about you and your lives and what life is like and being here for you. And I think that I do have, at least I hope that y'all can hear it over the airwaves too, is that I'd love to be a space for y'all to just feel known and loved and accepted just as you are. So when we're going around in our lives and in the frenzy sometimes, or in the struggle or in the challenge, or sometimes just in the excitement and we want to be celebrated, that this can be a place where you can get a little jolt of like, yep, okay, good to be me in the world. Yep, totally accept it for who I am. Do not need to mask up. Do not need to make myself less than. Do not need to quiet myself. We're going to fucking go. Full send. Okay, so that is my intention amongst others. So who the heck am I? Here's what I want y'all to consider when I'm introducing myself is I am going to have a perspective. I'm going to have a bias based on where I have lived and who I've grown up as and all of the different systems that have privileged me or not. I am made up of a variety of components. And some of them may feel very familiar to you, similar to you. Some of them may not. And that's okay. I want y'all to get a sense that I'm going to have a perspective that may not fit with you. I'm going to have ideas that may not fit with the way that you see the world. And in our relationship, in this case, please know that you win every time. We are so used to discounting ourselves and asking for advice from other people and giving power, abdicating. How about that? Abdicating our power to other people because society has said that they know us better than we know us. I don't believe that. Okay, so let's be real clear about that. I do not believe that. I believe that you know yourself best of all. And if you don't believe that yet, stay with me. Let's build that trust and that confidence in yourself. Because nobody is going to care about you as much as you care about you and your needs and your desires and your goals. Nobody knows your needs and your goals and your desires as much as you do. So please don't abdicate any power to me. I'm going to say some things, and if they resonate with you and they have you feel lighter and they have you feel seen and known and being able to make whatever next steps totally light you up, awesome. And if you're like, ooh, Cielle, that one, not so much. Okay, permission to just freaking let it go and trust yourself here and be like, that just does not fit me, and that's okay. Alrighty, so let's see. Let's start with, I am a biracial, white, cisgender, heterosexual, American, able-bodied, neurotypical woman. I feel like I've hit them all, but I'm sure I've forgotten some. And when I say biracial, American Filipino. So my mom is Filipina, my dad is American. I was born in LA in California, quickly moved to Calgary, Canada. And I lived there till I was 7. And then I moved to Michigan. And I was there for several years until 8th and 9th grade. I did my 8th and 9th grade in Strasbourg, France. And I loved it so much. Came back to Michigan to do my high school. Went to Indiana to do college. And I did my undergraduate and my master's there. And then I moved to Lille, France, and I taught at the University of Charles de Gaulle over there. Came back to Indiana. I'm trying to think of geography here. Came back to Indiana, which is where I met my husband to be. Ooh, cutie pie that he is. And we moved here to Colorado, which is where I am currently a long ass time ago, and we have stayed. So there's the geographic background. Because of this, I spent a lot of my younger years traveling to Europe and to the Philippines. Of course, that has shaped the way that I interact with people in the world. All right, let's see. I knew I wanted to work with young adults. I was 13 or 14, I think. I watched a movie, A Mirror Has Two Faces, with Barbra Streisand. And in it, I remember that at the very beginning of the movie, she's lecturing to a hall of college students. And I saw that scene and I was like, that's it. That's what I want to do. And I did it fast. So I was teaching before I could drink. And I remember that. Because I remember my colleagues would be like, all right, let's go celebrate at the bar. And I'd be like, can we go get pizza instead? So that must have been 19 or 20. I did my undergraduate and my master's fast. So I got them both in comparative literature. I believe I had a double major in French, and I also had a minor in international studies. I believe that's it. I ended up getting a terminal master's in comparative literature. I actually was at Indiana University is the place that I went to, but I was there to do the PhD program, but got to basically ABD, which is all but dissertation. I got super disillusioned with the dissertation ideas and processes and I just felt like I was going to be, what is that word? Pigeonholed. I had to take all of the interests that I had and put it into one dissertation that would then affect me the rest of my life. And I could not do it. I couldn't do it. So I decided to get a terminal master's, and I was graduating with my master's at the same time that my friends that I had started with freshman year were graduating with their undergrad. So when I say I used to move fast, I did things fast. So I knew at 14 that I wanted to be a college professor. I was doing that. Once I got that master's, I got a position as a lecturer at the University of Charles de Gaulle in Lille, France, and I went there for a little bit. And that is actually, okay, so I loved it, first of all, but that was also actually where I realized I had the rest of my life, and was I going to be teaching for the rest of it? It's like I worked so hard for this goal of being a professor, and then at 21, I was like, okay, I've got my dream job. I'm teaching in France. Can it get any better? Or is this what I'm supposed to be doing for the rest of my 80 years? I didn't know. And at that point, I decided to try different things out. I knew I loved teaching. So here's what I want y'all to remember is I just started teaching at that point, and I haven't stopped until 2 years ago, where I decided to retire myself. I feel like after 20 years, I said I'm going to get away from the education system and go on my own with coaching. Oh my gosh, I keep going back and forth. In any case, I have a girlfriend who's like, time, what is it even? Apparently, in my synopsis of myself, that's how I'm feeling. I can actually remember the moment where I'm sitting on my bed in my apartment in Lille. It's rainy and gray, and I am preparing for classes. And I wonder, is this it? I'm living the dream. I've lived what my goal is. Will I have no more goals the rest of my life? Do I just do this for the next 80 years? And so that sort of started this path of trying different things. So I knew that I loved teaching. I knew that I was good at it. I knew that that was where I was supposed to be. And so I continued, y'all, for like the next 20 years. Just know that I was always teaching at some university, some college. But then I said, well, I'm curious about a lot of other things. Let me try those things out too and just see. So I tried book editing for a little bit. I didn't love that. I was a barista. I still love that. Just didn't pay the bills very well. I was a professional ballroom dancer. So my husband and I taught ballroom dance for a while. And while I love to dance, especially with him, making money from it was not something that I really loved to do. So I didn't do that. I became a principal at a language immersion elementary school in the area, and then continued administration because I did really enjoy that, and became a dean at a college. And I was doing that until I had my first son, and realized that working 70 to 80 hours and coming home at midnight didn't work very well with having a newborn. So I stopped that, and again, still continued to teach. So then I started an international wedding planning company, which did really well. Within the first year, it was voted top, I think it was top 5 in Denver, and I don't know, the accolades internationally. So I did that for several years, and then realized I didn't love the wedding planning business as much as I loved being in the classroom and teaching. So I ended up gifting the company to amazing women who worked with me. And I think that was when I went full-time into the classroom. So that was when I went full-time as a professor here in Colorado. There I stayed through COVID. I'm realizing I forgot to tell y'all that I have a second child. So as I was teaching and running a wedding planning company, I had my second son. They're phenomenal. So fast forward to COVID, we were the family who bought an RV and decided to school and work on the road while visiting different things. And while it was crazy and fun and hectic and a lot, I was on one of those long roads and I'm driving the RV and I'm going down this long road and I actually can picture the mountains sort of in the foreground. And I'm listening to another coaching podcast and it hit me. I could actually go into coaching. And then as I sat with it, I realized I've actually been doing coaching and putting myself in coaching classes since I was 7 years old. I've been always sort of in this self-development, personal development, whatever. Like I've loved that world. And again, as I'm driving this big ass RV on the road, I'm realizing that's actually one of the reasons that I love the classroom. I didn't start teaching. And I taught English, y'all, literature and English. I didn't start teaching because I was so excited about people learning how to do thesis statements. Like, do I love reading and writing and thesis statements? Fine. Yes, I do. But what totally turned me on about teaching and what kept me coming back to the gift that is teaching is that I got to support people in living their lives. And that's the way that I structured the freaking class. And it actually showed up. Hold on. I have a text from somebody who actually said, I wonder if I can get to it. All right. So I actually found something that a previous student wrote, and he messaged me and said, I felt every time I left your class, I learned something about life, not just how to write a paper. And I realized how connected those were. And so that was the first time that I really thought, maybe coaching can be a thing. Maybe I can sort of morph. And at that point, I didn't know if I was going to continue to teach in the classroom or just do coaching. And it was, I think, a year and a half after COVID. It was the first time that we got back to classes in person fully. And I stepped foot on that campus after taking the light rail. And I realized that I felt really complete with teaching and that I was ready to go fully into coaching. And so that's what I've done. So the past couple of years, I have been a coach. Not necessarily just for young adults. That has been a transition for me, trying to figure out sort of whatever this niche thing is that people talk about. But I definitely started life coaching and it's been such a joy because now I get to actually support y'all in your lives without also talking about thesis statements. And I actually was able to transition or know that I was going to transition to supporting young adults basically exclusively when I was on a beach in Puerto Rico last year. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, y'all, I just want to support young adults. I want my niche to be an age range, but I didn't hear that. In the life coaching sort of circles, there were all these, there was empowerment coach and mindset coach and a women's leadership coach. And there were all of those things, but it wasn't necessarily age related. And I'm sitting on that damn beach and I'm a little frustrated. And I'm like, damn it, why don't I see any young adult coaches? Why is it always kids? And then, of course, when you're sort of middle-aged and older, why? Where's the young adults? And then, y'all, it seriously was like a movie. It's like the clouds parted, and I could totally be making it up, but it's like the clouds parted and the sun started beaming down. And here's what I heard in my brain. It was like, of course, there's no young adult life coach because it's yours. It was always meant for you. In my body, what it felt like was no shit. There's nobody else in front of you to do this because this is yours and it has always been yours. And that it just sort of goes along with sort of this feeling that I've had in my life often. So I've always felt, which is probably why I love the book Against the Grain, is I've always felt like I've done some things differently. I've gone against the grain on a lot, especially choices I've made related to my career. And I was like, oh, of course, this is just another one. I get to just lead the way here. So that was at the beginning of last year. I've had my work to do internally to be able to get to the point where I can actually be speaking with you about it and to really own it. And that can be a conversation for another time. But basically, that's where I'm at. And that's why I'm here with y'all, is because I just love being with you. If you ask me my why, which several people have, like, why are you starting this podcast? Of course, it's to support y'all. It just feels like it's always been my purpose. One of the reasons that I'm placed on this planet. It's also, I have the most freaking fun with you. Just other than with my 2 boys and my husband, right? Like, I love being with them, but I feel like my best self. I have so much fun with y'all. You bring out the best in me. You energize me. So y'all, there are some selfish reasons. If there were not selfish reasons to doing this podcast, let me just say I wouldn't be doing it. If it didn't feel good to me on all levels, it wasn't happening. And it reminds me of Long Live. There was one time where I was with a group of students. We were meeting virtually, and it was at the end of the year. And I said, y'all, whenever I hear the song Long Live, I do love me some Taylor Swift. So whenever I hear that song, I always think about you and that I have the time of my life with you. And I said that, and there was a student who piped up and he goes, "Of course you like Long Live. You fight dragons with us." I felt so known and seen at that point. Y'all, I was like, oh my gosh, y'all get me? It's like, yes, okay. Let's fight some dragons. I don't mind fighting dragons with y'all. I actually have the time of my life fighting dragons with you, and I'm ready. Oh my gosh, now there's another song. Are y'all ready for it? Because I am. All right, so let's have this be the end of episode 1. I know that I had 7 million other things that I wanted to include in this episode. And I'm thinking, you know what? This is just the beginning of this relationship, of this podcasting relationship, whatever it turns into. And I have time. I was actually thinking about y'all on a plane. I was coming back from Europe 2 weeks ago with my eldest son, feeling so grateful to just be in this space, in this life, the way that I get to do it. Oh, after a lot of freaking work, y'all, let's just, Not too many people talk about how hard it is to actually like live the kind of life that you want to, and the behind the scenes work that it takes. Now, it can also be fun because you have these moments like I did in that plane where I felt really excited and really grateful. And I was thinking about my life, and if we were to categorize it, like I do love literature and I love books. And if my life became a genre, what kind of genre would I want it to be? And without a doubt, I want it to be a love story. I want it to be a love story with life. Yes, Cielle loved life and was in relationship with life in a way, or I was in relationship with my partner whom I just freaking adore dearly, or a relationship with my family and my kids. I have a lot of love to share. And I realize that the overflow of love that I have, it's like I do want to have a love story, a relationship with y'all too. And I don't know what this relationship is going to turn into. I don't know what it's going to look like, but I'm so curious and excited to see what it becomes. So I guess that's it in a nutshell. I'm sort of blanking on all of the things that I said in this episode, but I'm going to trust that it's enough, because that has been on a very personal level. If you're wondering like how I'm celebrating myself and doing this podcast and how I'm stepping up, it's been a lot of work related to, first of all, trusting that I am valuable and have value no matter what. Trusting that I can say my truth, that I can speak my truth out loud to the world, and that I'm worthy enough to do that. And trusting myself. Trusting that I'm here for a reason, trusting that I'm saying the things that matter to y'all that may land. Just a lot of trust. So, Once again, I'm so thankful to be here with y'all. Thank you so much for many of you who have been on this journey with me already. I just want to wrap my arms around you and give you a huge hug. And for those of you who are just starting the journey with me, I cannot wait again to see what this story becomes. So I realize that we are at the beginning of our podcasting journey together. However, if you are already excited, already wanting to share this with people in your lives, already thinking that it would be beneficial to have these conversations on a more global scale, there are ways that you could support that. One of the main ways is to like, follow, and subscribe on whichever platform you are watching or listening to me on. You could always comment. I would love to know what you found helpful or interesting in any of the episodes. And of course, if you have ideas about what conversations, what topics you would like to cover in the future, please let me know. Again, this podcast is for you. Other ways that you can find me are on social. So I am on Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook at Cielle Amundson. That is at CIELLEAMUNDSON. Find me there, say hi, let's start a conversation. And if this is something that you think other people in your lives would love to be a part of, would love to hear, would love to be in conversation with, please share this with them. Thank you again, and I look forward to seeing you or having you at the next episode.